Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, we're going to have a car tip of the week, open phones and texts, of course, and good vibrations. And this is a...
Can you sing that, Dave?
No, I can't. But we had a lady, she had her car towed in about 2 weeks ago, and came in on a tow truck. We never drove it. It wouldn't drive. It wouldn't get out of its own way. So we fixed the transmission. It was all done, and the transmission worked great, man. I road tested this car, and I hit the brakes, and, man, I just shook my teeth out. And, I mean, so she shows up for a car. I say, man, your transmission works great, but did you feel that vibration? What vibration? She had no clue. And that's the thing. I get in these people's cars, and they just live with this stuff that's tearing their car up, and they're totally ignoring it. And she's like, oh, is that a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think people just sometimes they don't want to know, or wishful thinking it's going to get better. What's happening? But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, Dave, and you're right. You take a nice car that starts shaking and rattling or having these problems. Next thing you know, the dashboard's coming loose, the sun visor's hanging down because it's just getting beat to death. And there's all kinds of different scenarios that there's going to be vibrations, and some of them are the same systems, like a drive line or something like that is going to be one symptom. You can have braking, and each is a little bit different, and all different kinds of symptoms, and each can lead to a different kind of problem too.
We always talk on this show about how these problems get worse over time, like your shoes wear out over time. You don't know until you get a new pair of shoes, and you go, wow, that's nice. Or a mattress, 10 years old, it's not like it was 10 years ago when you bought it. It's a good idea to have somebody else driving your car once in a while, and or have someone just get in your car, and they're like, what's that noise? What noise? What are you talking about? I just turned the radio up. And vibrations are a problem, and people live with them, but I've seen it get I've seen dramatic problems from ignoring vibrations. So we don't want to ignore them because they can ruin your car.
So let's talk about, what different scenarios? So maybe the first one is the road speed. What kind of things are we going to feel at speed? Cruising down the road, I don't care if it's 70 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour. What are we going to feel? What are the different kinds of things that we will notice at that speed?
Yeah, so that's when someone comes to me and says, I got a vibration, I want to know, what speed does the vibration happen? And does it get worse with road speed and better as you slow down? Is it consistent with the speed? So it's frequency. Does it speed up? So that's the road speed vibration. But you're saying, what speed does it happen? So if it's a vibration that happens at, say, 55 miles an hour, and it's there at 55, it's there at 56, it's there at 57, but it's gone at 58 miles per hour, well, to us, the first thing that comes to our mind is tire vibration. Mm-hmm. That's a real common one. It's just there for a little window of 3 miles per hour. That's a high-speed tire vibration, which is different than a low-speed tire vibration, which is going to feel more like a wobble.
Yeah, you're going to feel that one like 7 miles an hour, maybe just as you're taking off. And a lot of times you don't feel that I mean, it's amazing. You can have this tire that's giving this horrible wobble, it's just horrible. And then all of a sudden you speed up, and I can't believe it's not just shaking the car to death, but it doesn't for some reason. Two different things. One's major. You've got a tire that's going to blow out. The other one's just a simple maintenance item a lot of times.
Well, you can't ignore that wobble at slow speeds like that. That one is like, get to the tire store right now because your tread is about to be laying all over the freeway.
Right. And then sometimes at the counter, it sounds like we're really interrogating you, but we really are. We need good information.
We are.
I mean, we're not waterboarding or anything, but we need to know. We need to know. And so you might have that vibration, and they say, yeah, it happens at 55 miles an hour. And if a guy doesn't ask more questions, somebody might just balance the tires and send the car out. But it's quite a different, we're going to take a much different approach to it if you say it happens at 55 miles an hour, and then we start to ask more questions. Where are you going? How do you drive? Oh, well, I notice it every time I go to pass somebody. So now we've changed the scenario. Now you're at 55 miles an hour and you're on a light acceleration. Maybe you want to speed up to go around somebody, get up to 60 or so, 65, and slow back down. and it's there when you accelerate, but it goes away as you decelerate and get back to cruise. Now we're not even looking at tires.
That's a different program altogether. It's the little differences there in that conversation, and that's going to be more like a half shaft or an axle, an axle shaft on a front wheel drive car that we're feeling. It could be a rear wheel drive car with
a drive shaft
with half shafts in it too, and also driveline vibration.
Even an all-wheel drive car, they've got a lot more components, and those get loaded differently. Completely different conversation, and the consequences of ignoring that can be totally different. Dave, what's the Dodge truck where the thing starts to vibrate, gets a little U-joint, next thing you know, the transfer case is in 1,000
Oh,
pieces.
yeah, that's a very expensive. We've totaled a couple cars where they came in on a tow truck and the front drive shaft, the U-joint came apart, and the guy just went to Discount Tire the day before to get his tires balanced because he was trying to fix the vibration, but he had a more serious problem going on, and it was like a $10,000 repair, and they just said...
And that's not a dig at Discount Tire.
No, not at all. They did what they were supposed to do, but in his mind, he thought, it's got to be tires. And this is one where people confuse. They confuse wheel alignment with tire balance, and those are two totally different things for two totally different symptoms. And so if you've got a shake, that's a different ball game versus if you got a car that wants to pull you into the curb.
All the time, people come into my shop, Virginia Auto Service, they say, I need an alignment. And again, we're going to start this question process and gathering information. That's what we need. And that is one of the most often things confused. People want an alignment to fix a vibration. And 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. That's not going to take care of it. The other...
well, on the other end of things, we've been talking about going fast in vibrations, but slowing down vibrations, and this was specifically the problem the lady had in her car. When I'm slowing down, coming up to a stoplight, the steering wheel's kind of jiggling and the car's shaking. That's a brake pulsation. So it's whenever you're on the brakes. Typically, brake pulsations will be worst when you're going at a faster speed and you first get on the brakes. That's where you're going to feel them the most in a lot of cases.
So I always tell people, picture the old record player turntable. The needle bounce, the record's slightly warped, and the needle's moving up and down. You spin that thing faster, that needle's going to bounce off. And you're mostly going to notice that. The best example for me is people around town. They're going down I-10 or the 51. They're going to make their exit. So they're going from 55 miles an hour, light application of the brakes to get in that exit lane, and all of a sudden it starts shaking. It warped rotors, sometimes a transfer of pad material from the brake pad onto the rotor, a hard spot or a high spot, and that's...
what you're saying is you've got discs that would be like that record player.
Yeah.
So they're not true, and every time they come around and they hit that needle or the brake pad...
where it clamps down.
That's where you're going to get the little wobble, and so the faster you're going, you can see that thing just going real quick in a sense. So that's the other end of the spectrum. So those are going to be the road speed vibrations, the things we feel when we're driving down the road. On the other end of the spectrum are engine speed vibrations, and sometimes it's a little hard to tell the difference.
What do you mean the vibration in relationship to the speed of the engine? The speed of the engine affects the vibration.
Correct. And if your car's got a tachometer, that's the thing that goes from like 1 to 6, maybe 7, maybe 9 if you got a performance car or a rotary engine. Mm-hmm. But that's your engine speed. And so some vibrations are consistent or they change with that speed of the engine. So if your car was in park, you're at a stoplight and you just sat there and revved it up and down and you saw the frequency of that vibration change, that takes away all those other things. We're not worried about tires. We're not worried about drive shafts. We're not worried about axles. We're not worried about brake pulsations. We know that it's something that is spinning when the engine is on. So that's going to be things like, we talked about mounts in prior shows. Engines vibrate. That's what they do. That's why mounts are made of rubber, to absorb that. And if a mount is bad, you're going to feel that vibration transfer into the car, which is into your seat. You're going to feel it there.
And, of course, like you say, all engines vibrate. So some engines have counterbalance shafts that are spun with the timing belt or the timing chain, and that helps get a lot of those out. But then every car also has a weighted harmonic balancer, and that's basically the pulley where the belt connects on the front of the engine. That is a big chunk of steel, and it's balanced, but that's also pressed on, in many cases, over a rubber sleeve. And those will rotate off of their original mounting position, and then that's when you get that harmonic. It's just a harmonic vibration, like you're saying, Dave. You maybe rev through that, or you accelerate the engine up to 2,500 RPMs, and just hold that steady, and that whole engine might be shaking that's where we're looking at a harmonic balancer or
Some other things, a fan clutch.
Yes.
You know, on a rear-wheel drive car, there's a fan blade and a fan clutch, and fan clutches will go bad, and that'll get it out of balance. Also, fan blades. I've seen fan blades where you got a chunk of the blade missing, and so that thing. I think of my ceiling fan at home with 5 blades on it. If I took one blade off, it would shake like a son of a gun. But same thing can happen to your car. There's a fan blade at the front of the thing that pulls air across the radiator. So those would be engine speed vibrations. What are some of the other things that I'm thinking there is some that would happen at speed, so going 45 miles an hour. But if you got an engine with a little bit of misfire to it, when you are cruising going 45 miles an hour and you just accelerate a little bit and load up the engine, sometimes you'll feel a stutter there where the engine is misfiring. So if it's a V8, one of the cylinders is not cooperating, maybe 2 or 3 of them aren't cooperating, and so they're not firing at full power, and therefore you're going to feel it not be smooth.
One other one real quick too is we talked about the brake pulsation under braking. That can also happen with the rear brakes. Typically, you're going to feel the front in the steering wheel. You might feel something going on in the back, feel it in your butt. You're going to feel it in the seat. But we've been bit a couple times. It's always sometimes a slow process, but you get a brake drum that can be out of balance, and you're fighting all these vibrations. You're balancing the tires till you're blue in the face, and all of a sudden you're like,
That's just a cheap brake job gone wrong.
Yeah, we need to throw that drum on up on the balancer and see if that's out of whack.